Suzanne's Paparazzi Jewelry, 24/7 shopping available. 160920 is the code. Show her some love, like she showed us. K&A Custom Crafts on Facebook.
Hi, everybody. It's Joe. Oh, I think I'm live. Hi, everybody. It's Joe Tierney. Thanks for coming in and tuning in. My co-host Amber is running a few minutes behind, so I'm solo tonight. I hope some listeners will hop on and talk a little bit with me. So I'm going to talk about my journey. I'll recap. I'll recap some of the things that happened this week and what happened in regard to my fitness and health. And then I'll also speak to the love yourself piece because I'm a big advocate for that. So I have certainly been doing my breathing exercises. I've been trying to get that in 5 times a day, and that's at part of Amber's advice and guidance. So I have been doing that, and that's been beneficial. I have also been doing the water. I've been trying to get in a gallon of water a day, and I found that is very effective. It has certainly been beneficial to my health and well-being, and it's helped me lessen my appetite, decrease my appetite, and to be able to follow Amber's guidance. I've also been doing the half my goal weight in protein, so that's been working out well. I have had some difficulties. I had a lot of parties this weekend, and I think that I wasn't as I didn't deprive myself. I'll say that I didn't overindulge, but I didn't deprive myself either. And I'm back in the strength training. Oh, and here's Amber now, looking fabulous. Hi, Amber.
Hi. I'm so sorry I'm late.
Oh, that's all right. I was just telling the viewers about how the things that I did this week to elevate my game and follow your strategic plan. I've been doing the breathing about 5 times a day. It's been doing the drinking the water, which I think is huge. I've always been, not always, in the last few years, water has never been a big fan of. I haven't been a big fan of water, but
it's an acquired taste.
It's an acquired taste, and I like it. I use the water drops, and now I like it. And for many times, I've tried to drink a gallon, but the last year I probably haven't. Since COVID, I was pretty crazy. I would drink, not crazy, but I would drink about 160 ounces a day, actually. But then during COVID, I cut that way back, and I'm trying to build myself back up to a gallon. So I've had some success there. I've been doing the protein, half my goal weight in protein, and that's been working out well. I haven't been counting calories for the most part, and I'm back.
We had a whole Clubhouse call on that too today about counting calories.
Really? Yeah, I think that's a good one. And I'm back in the gym with the strength training. I was on vacation for 2 weeks, and the way that my class works, you have to sign up to get in. So you have to sign up a week in advance. So it was booked this week. I couldn't get in. Not this week, last week. So now I'm back in the game. I'm back, and it's like starting all over again. You're sore after 3 weeks. So I did that yesterday. I'm in for the rest of the week, and I'm looking forward to that. And Justin has already commented about the strength training is hard to do, and I agree, but it's certainly certainly worth it. So tell us about your week and what's happening, and what we're going to talk about tonight.
So tonight we're going to talk about grateful movement, or just movement and exercise in general. But I will say, a full disclosure, I had a weekend where I just went off the rails. Like, I went to my first professional soccer game, and I don't know why, but on the way there, I'm like, ooh, I want one of those big pretzels and cheese. And not only that, but I had a diet soft drink. So I went off, and then I came home and I ate like 3 more times, none of it, which was healthy. And then the next day I was feeling so sluggish and like not motivated to get up and work out, which is typically not like me. So yeah, I'm back to it. Came off the rails, but believe it or not, even if you do have a day where you take it, whether it's a day or a meal, I prefer a meal, but if you have a day where you feast, I guess, if you want to call it, it's actually not going to make you gain weight. You're not going to gain 2 or 3 pounds just in that one meal. In fact, the body sometimes needs that because it gets accustomed. Because remember what I told you, our bodies are adaptation machines. So it's going to adapt to whatever you usually do. So I remember back in my bodybuilding days, every 3 days you would have, like, they call it a cheat day, but it's actually not. You're just kind of increasing your complex carbs So you're not actually eating a lot of sugar, but it's kind of a ways to shock your body. So when you go back, you'll have more success when you get back to your healthy lifestyle or your healthy way of eating. So I'm not trying to encourage people to have like a whole cheat day, but a cheat meal it's not going to break you. It's not going to break your diet. And it sometimes gives you that ability to feel like you're not depriving yourself.
I agree. And I'm going to speak to the cheat meal, cheat day thing. For me, I try to be pretty strict about it because a cheat meal does turn into a cheat day. So I think that that's the problem. And almost you kind of spoke to it. Once you start having those carbs, you often lead you to 2 or 3 more times in the day. So I went to a party myself this Saturday, and I tried to be very mindful of it. I did not. I didn't deprive myself, but I was pretty good about it. And I think that that's an important piece. And I want to speak about that is just one moment of success. And I'm going to catch you up on Randy in a little bit, but just small incremental bits of success earns credibility with yourself. And I think until you earn that credibility, you're in a position where you don't believe you can do it. And just those small steps will move you toward and change your mindset to allow you to believe that, yes, I can do these things. And I think that's why I love your program. It builds one thing to the next. And that's how you really build some credibility.
Well, and you mentioned something that I want to bring to everybody's attention. So when you're eating that processed food that you're not accustomed to eating, or that sugar, so the food companies, they're strategic. They spend millions of dollars on this, probably billions of dollars. So all these chemical additives that they put in it, they actually trick your taste buds and the systems in your body to make you crave it. So if you've ever noticed, when you have that cheat meal, you actually crave it even more, even though you might feel like crap and you're feeling guilty, but you're actually going to crave it the next day and sometimes days after that. So that's strategic. It's not, you're not falling off the wagon. You don't have a lack of willpower. They spend billions of dollars just like putting these chemicals in foods to make you want to crave it. So you want to eat more of it.
And I think that that's why when you're saying that you're not used to eating them, but oftentimes the people who eat them are used to eating them. And that's the problem. It becomes habitual, and almost those chemicals are made to allow you to develop an addiction almost. Right.
Well, and I mean, you nailed it, because believe it or not, we do have an opiate epidemic and heroin, you name it. But the number one thing that is addicted to across the globe is food. Food is the number one drug that people are addicted to because it's easily accessible. It's on every street corner. You get it when you're a child. I mean, how often does something good happen and they reward you with an ice cream? Or, so it's programmed in us that when we celebrate, and think about every family gathering that you go to, it is always centered around food. Whether it's a celebration or whatever it is, it's always centered around some food. So it's conditioning that we've had in our life. So we have to kind of learn to celebrate with another means. And for some people that are struggling to release that weight, that's an adjustment, a major adjustment in and of itself.
And not only that, we can't live without food. Right. If you're an alcoholic, you can give up alcohol. If you're a drug addict, you can give up drugs, but we can't give up food. So you can't go cold turkey, which often works for other forms of addiction. So I think that exacerbates the whole addiction model.
It does. So this week we're talking about exercise. And one thing I want to differentiate is I often get, first of all, the first question that I always ask my clients is, if you only have 20 minutes to work out, what would you do? Would you do cardio or would you do strength training? So what would your answer be?
Well, if I only had 20 minutes, well, keep in mind, I do both, but I think that the lead in would probably be cardio. I'd take a 20-minute walk because it's just more functional in that time span. And you can do that anywhere. So I think it depends on where you are. I think you have to be in a position to do strength training. You need, unless you're doing push-ups. I know there are other forms of strength training that you can do body weight. So that's true. So,
well, the reason most people, from my experience, what people tell me is that if I only have 20 minutes, I'm going to burn more calories in that 20 minutes if I'm doing cardio than I am if I'm doing strength training or any kind of resistance training. And although that is true somewhat, so in that 20 minutes, yes, during the 20 minutes, you're going to burn more calories. And if you're doing like a HIIT cardio, high intensity interval training, then you might actually create like a 20 or 30-minute afterburn, which afterburn means you're burning the same amount of calories that you are while you're working out, but you're done working out. So in that regard, then yes, you are going to burn more calories. But the way I look at it is, what is going to let you burn more calories the entire day? Because let's be honest, there's 24 hours in a day. And if you're working out at max, you're probably working out an hour. I would hope not, unless you're competing in something, you're not working out for more than an hour. So what are you doing the other 23 hours of the day to help you release that weight? When you're doing strength training, you're building muscle. So 1 pound of fat burns 1 calorie an hour. 1 pound of muscle burns 10 calories an hour, and it even burns it while you're sleeping. So the correct answer is always going to be resistance training. It doesn't have to be with formal weights. It can be body weight, plyometrics, something like that. But gaining muscle is always going to be far more beneficial to you than just cardio, because you're going to get the results of it for the entire 24 hours instead of just that 30 minutes or an hour while you're doing it.
That's great. So Chris, let's bring up Justin's comment about the gym and how you need a gym for strength training. And I think that's a misconception that many people have. And if we can speak to that, let's speak to that. And Justin, I know that you do push-ups, and that's a form of strength training. Correct? It's just body weight training or squats, our body weight training, strength training. And I think that people are often have that misconception. What other exercises out there can people do in the comfort of their home?
So you don't necessarily have to have barbells or dumbbells. I think COVID really opened up people's eyes to the ways they can involve resistance training without having your typical gym equipment. So you can take gallon jugs that you get milk in and fill them with water. Sometimes you're even going to get a more resistance because it's not a comfortable grip. So you have to like really concentrate on what you're doing. Soup cans, any kind of cans that are weighted. The milk jugs is probably my most popular one that I would, but also you can get the resistance bands. And although they might not give you quite as much weight as what you would get with a dumbbell or a barbell, resistance bands are pretty effective. Actually, there's complete workouts with that, but also with just your body weight. You got to think, if you weigh, let's say 150 pounds, you're doing a push-up, you're lifting 150 pounds. So that's equivalent to probably more than what you would do if you were using a barbell or a dumbbell. So I love the question, because you're right. That is a misconception. We have to go to the gym. That it's actually not true. I've recently been researching what's called static contraction. So in as opposed to doing like 12 reps of a particular exercise, and what all you're doing is actually you're holding it in an isometric position. So like you're going to go down for the squat and you're just going to hold it for 10 seconds. If you can hold it for longer than 10 seconds, then you do need to increase your weight, because then it's kind of like doing 20 reps of a curl. That's a very old theory that, high rep, low weight is going to be effective. It's actually not the case. But for those of you that have children out there, put your kid on your back when you're doing push-ups. Have them hold on to you while you're doing a pull-up, while you're at the park at the gym. You know what I'm saying? You utilize your kids, utilize friends or partners that you have them help you. It doesn't have to be like iron barbells and dumbbells.
I agree. And so you're speaking about the reps and the weights. I think that that's something that we'd like to address too for women. I often hear that even at the gym I go to. I don't want to do the heavier weights because I'm going to bulk up. And the response is always the same. You only bulk up if your diet is contributes to that and is the catalyst behind that. Do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, in fact, I had the same perception when I first got into health and fitness. I was like, I don't want to get big and bulky, but I promise you, it is literally impossible unless you're supplementing your body with hormones that your body is not producing naturally, or you are going to the gym and lifting heavy weights, but you haven't altered your diet, which, guys, you cannot outwork a bad diet. So if you're going to continue to eat the way you eat, I'm not saying you're better off not exercising, but you're just not going to see results. I remember when I first became a trainer, there was a guy that relentless. He would be on the cardio machine for, I don't know, 45 minutes to an hour and a half every day, relentless. His body never changed. It literally never changed. So I asked him one day, when does he do his resistance training? And he said after he does his warm up. So there's a misconception out there that you need to warm up first, which you do. You do want to get your muscles warm. But if you're doing your cardio before you do your resistance training, then you're burning all the glycogen, which is the sugar that is in your cells and your muscles. You're burning all that. So when you go to do your resistance training, you're not going to have the energy to lift as heavy as you need to lift or what you're capable of lifting. And if you're not lifting heavy enough, you're not signaling the muscle that it needs to grow. So all you're doing when you do that low weight, high rep, you're really just getting a cardiovascular workout. You're not producing more muscle. I promise you, you're not doing that.
So what about people who do like to do cardio just for the endorphins? Should they do the strength training first and then follow it with cardio?
Okay. Absolutely. You never do cardio before resistance. So the goal is that you want to have the glycogen in your system so that you can lift the weights. And then when you're done doing your strength training, then do your cardio so you can deplete your glycogen and you're burning the fat.
And that's very interesting to me because I know that I told you, I spoke to you about my routine before COVID, which was a little bit excessive. I would go to the strength training and then I would go to the spinning class every day. But that really is the best shape of my life when I was doing the resistance, following it with the cardio. And now I never put that two and two together, but that really is beneficial. That really was beneficial to me, for me in many regards. And I enjoy the cardio, not necessarily. Well, I do like, of course, the fat loss benefits, but I like it too in regard to it just gives me a different feeling emotionally than the strength training does. And I think that that's why a lot of people do it. They get a different type of they get the endorphins and a different elevation in their mood.
Well, it's kind of like the runners, which I'm not a runner, but you will hear people talk about that runner's high. So that's just a spike of those feel-good hormones such as norepinephrine, dopamine, serotonin, all those feel-good hormones that make us happy and conjovial. You do tend to get those in an excess when you're doing cardio. You'll get them in strength training too, but you have to up your intensity a little bit more than you do in cardio in order to get those. Okay, I personally don't do a lot of cardio. I'm just not. And here's why. When I was a cheerleader, back way decades and decades ago, anytime we did anything wrong, we were punished with having to run. So that's why I utterly hate to run. I just have this pairing in my mind that if I'm running, I've done something wrong. But then when I was competing, I had to do like 30 to 45 minutes of cardio every single day. And it just wore me out. Now, if I'm doing cardio, it's something like that is a social activity involved with other people. I can do it. It's not a problem. But also, when you're pairing social activity, so that's one of the things that I do with my clients that come to me and say, I hate to exercise. That's fine. We can you don't have to go to the gym and do traditional gym exercises in order to get the benefits of exercising. But if you just typically hate any form of exercise, pair it with some form of connection. So buddy up with a friend that you enjoy spending time with and you enjoy that true connection with, because you're going to get like a double whammy of all those endorphins because you're getting the social connection plus the benefits of the exercise. And we're social creatures, guys. As much as you like your alone time and your me time, which I'm a fan of that, we are social creatures. We're not meant to live alone. So if it's something that you don't enjoy, enlist a buddy, have somebody, accountability partner that's going to hold you to it. So on those days that you don't feel like it, they're going to be like, no, we need to go anyways.
Agreed. That my sister gets me to go to the gym. I'll go by myself, but there are more often times that I hit the snooze button when she's not going than when I'm going with someone else. So I totally agree with that. And we spoke about that. Let's say, what are exercises, for instance? I think that wouldn't you say that hiking could be considered if you're going on a rugged terrain and you're going up? Yeah, that could be considered even in a strength exercise. It's not necessarily that's a combination. And I think people forget about things like that.
Well, yeah, because you think about it, in essence, you're doing somewhat of a squat. You're doing lunges when you're hiking up a hill. And then the rough terrain, I'm glad you mentioned that. So if you compare running on a treadmill versus running on outside, you're actually going to get far more benefits by running outside because it's uneven territory. So your body has to balance and has to have more agility to keep going across that terrain, as opposed to a very smooth treadmill that is somewhat self-propelled.
So we have a few comments. Justin is saying, can women go toe to toe with men in strength training? And then we have a woman who's calling Justin out and saying Amber would beat Justin in push-ups and squats. So So that's very interesting.
Well, I'd
And I
like to
think
think so, but guys, you don't need to lift. If you're a woman, you don't need to lift as heavy as a man to get the same effects of it. Our bodies are not designed to lift as heavy as a man is. Now, that's not to say that you can't get up to that, because there was a time when I went to the gym and I was squatting well past what men were doing. Not chest press and stuff, which is typically what men pride themselves on, is how much can you press, because we care about our chest. But yes, there was times when I was listing squatting far more than men, but that's not really what it's about. It's not about how much can you lift. It's about what are the results that you're getting.
so. Courtney has a comment as well. Hi, Courtney, and she's saying, "I love hiking. I love the views of the Adirondacks, and it's great exercise." And I think that we concur, and we both agree with that.
Now, Courtney, do you hike alone or do you hike with somebody? Either way, I would say is good, because alone you're going to get that self-reflection, that ability to take in the views, may even get to the top of the mountain and you want to do a little meditation. So either way is great, but I just think anytime we can involve socialization with it, so we get an additional bump of those neurotransmitters, is great, especially if you're not a fan of working out and exercise.
I agree. We were speaking about that yesterday, and on a different show, and Randy was saying how somebody else happened to bring up hiking, and Randy was saying that it's no fun to hike alone, and I think that's true, particularly for people who are single. But there is, and I believe this is a nationwide organization where it's called Meetup, and you can in all of these areas, you can go in and join that, and Meetup will help pair you with things like hiking groups or other types of groups that people can join in together to do, biking groups, hiking, walking. So that's a great, even bowling or anything. I think that that's a good option for people who are struggling. And I don't know how it's playing out now in the world of COVID, but I think that probably now there's some opportunities. It may decrease as those numbers and that evolves into whatever may happen.
Hiking happens to be one of those things that, although if you're familiar with the territory and the terrain, go for it on your own. But hiking, rock climbing, those are kind of things that I feel are best served when you have a partner, because you just don't know what could possibly happen. You're dealing with natural earth. You're not dealing with, a smooth, flat surface. So if you was to fall or something happened to you, you don't have a phone. I just think that you're better off to have a partner with that.
And Courtney's responding to your question. She's saying
Typically
that
with my family.
yeah, typically she never goes alone, which is wise, especially in the Adirondacks. Who knows what could happen? You can have
Where is that at?
That's in upstate New York. So
Oh, okay.
it's going far up north, and it's a beautiful, but you can run into a bear out there by yourself. So
Oh, really? Okay.
so I suggest a partner for sure. So Justin is saying our women are more flexible than men and is that true?
Not necessarily. So flexibility is something that, although we're born with having more flexible tendons and stuff, flexibility is just something that you acquire. You stretch your way into it with, no pun intended. But a lot of people, when they're doing strength training, they tend to forget about the stretching component. And then there's also the debate of, do I stretch before or do I stretch after? So it's generally two different types of stretching that you're doing. Your stretches after are more of your long hold stretches, but any flexibility can be acquired. In fact, I was just on Facebook the other day and I watched this woman. She was sitting with her legs out. She bent over and her legs came completely to the side and behind her, and then she rotated them back. And it's something that she apparently learned in just a 6-week course that she did. So
Wow.
it's something, and most of our flexibility has to do with our hip flexors. So when we have a propensity now with our jobs and stuff that we sit a lot. So when we sit a lot, our hip flexors get very tight. So we do need to stretch those, especially if you have a job that you're sitting a lot. That's something that I'd recommend, even 5 minutes of stretching every evening, maybe even like 2 to 3 minutes throughout the day. If you're sitting at your computer all day, just stretch those hip flexors. That tends to what causes, hip replacement. And then when our hips get bad, it deviates down to our knees and our other joints.
Well, I think stretching is almost the new trendy thing. People are doing not stretching, but flexibility. I mean, that's how they're marketing, and now there's flexibility classes, and even where I go, I've been going there for going on 4 years now. But until COVID, they never really started with the mobility movements. And then, well, we would do a few things, but now they were incorporating into the regular class where mobility is one of the core components. And some people like it and others are resistant to it. I think that's always, I think they think it's a waste of time, and you only have so much time to exercise. I don't want to waste it stretching.
I think it's funny you say that because when I first started training to compete, I was like, if I have 30 minutes, why am I going to spend, 5 or 10 minutes of that time stretching? That's not going to increase my muscle growth. But believe it or not, it is going to increase your muscle growth. It's going to increase your agility while you're doing cardio, whether you're strength training, cardio, whatever. The stretching is a critical component. Now, you don't necessarily have to stretch before and after, but I would recommend the after more so than the before. Before is more about just getting your muscles warm, but the after is when you need to, it also will help with the soreness. So typically when you're working out, when was the last day you worked out?
Yesterday.
So tomorrow, believe it or not, you're going to feel the effects of that workout more than you actually do today. So everybody's familiar with the day after being sore. There's this thing called DOS, which is delayed onset soreness. So typically your body is going to experience the most soreness on the second day. So that's, and that can be not eliminated, but decreased if you do some stretching to kind of combat some of that lactic acid that you built up during your workout.
All right, great. Yeah, because I'm already feeling it. So I'm in trouble tomorrow then. When I get back there in the morning, I'm going to be in trouble.
But do some stretching tonight and
right.
You can decrease it. Yes.
All right. Justin saying he did 22 push-ups today. So that's amazing.
That's awesome. 22 straight, Justin. That's great.
And yeah, that is interesting. Justin, did you do them straight? He challenges me to push-ups every day. So that's why he's commenting on that. But I never thought to ask him if it's straight. And mine aren't always straight, actually. Mine are a lot of times is because we're going in a rotation. We do 6 separate stations, maybe for a minute, and then I'll come back again to that station in 6 minutes. And so they're not often straight.
So Justin mentioned the girl push-ups. I actually don't like to call them girl push-ups. I like to call them modified push-ups because there are a lot of men that, so if you're doing a push-up and your body, I can't even like put my hand in, but if your body is kind of sunk down like this, then it doesn't matter if you're doing the regular push-ups or you're doing the modified push-ups, you're not going to get the same effect from the push-ups. So oftentimes if you're not there with your upper body strength yet, you are going to see far more better results if you do a modified push-ups, which just means what he's meaning, the girl push-ups is from your knees. So it's all about what's going to give you the most muscle growth activation. So form is imperative. I will often go to the gym and I can tell you probably 8 out of 10 people that I see are not doing the exercise correctly. But I've also learned that they don't want to be corrected on that, especially from a female. So I've stopped doing that. But form is imperative. So it doesn't matter how heavy you can lift if you're not lifting it correctly. And what I mean by that, but let's say you're doing a bicep curl. If your arm is just 10 degrees out of position, you're not actually working the muscle that you think you're working. So form is imperative, which is why you will see mirrors everywhere when you go to gyms. It's not just because people enjoy looking at themselves. It's because form is so critical. It is so incredibly critical, which is the reason why you, in the beginning, it's advisable to get a personal trainer so that they can teach you the correct form.
Agreed. So I want to talk about, we want to talk about movement. So when do you think, Justin is saying, what was he saying? I wanted to go back to something. So what did he say? Yeah, straight. He did the push-up straight, but now I forgot what the comment was. I wanted to go back to one of his comments, but I lost it. So what is the benefit of what is the tie-in with the water and energy drinks and all of those things when you're working out? Should you be having Gatorade, or is just water sufficient? And what about pre-workouts? A lot of people do the pre-workouts now as well.
Typically, your pre-workout drinks are going to be made with water. What you have to be careful is that it's not made with fake sugar, basically sugar, period. Because what's that doing is it's dehydrating your body. So when your cells are dehydrated, they can't function properly. They can't exert as much energy as what they would typically do. So pre-workout drinks are not bad depending on what's in them. I don't want to say that they're good because you don't ever know the ingredients. So you just got to really read the ingredients. And this goes for not just pre-workout drinks, but this goes for anything you're eating, guys. Read the ingredients section. Just because it says no fat or no trans fat, there's a small loophole that the food agencies have been able to manage with the government. So as long as the food has less than 0.05 grams of trans fat, the FDA says you can list it as zero fat. That's not the case. And 0.5 trans fat is equivalent to about 25 grams of saturated fat. So there's loopholes everywhere. You cannot read what is on the front of the package. You've got to read the ingredient section. It's imperative.
So that sounds pretty significant. 0.25 grams of saturated fat. Yeah,
there is many loopholes in what the FDA has come up with. And I mean, this goes back to, do you remember in the 1970s is about when it happened? Harvard University paid, sugar industry paid Harvard University to release a report stating that the number one thing leading to heart disease was fat. So if you'll remember, that's when margarine came out, where, the commercials were the cajoling hands of wanting to be around. Well, it's the no fat industry, which has partially led to the obesity epidemic, because when you take fat out of a food, what do you think they supplement in there?
Right.
Sugar. And sugar is the number one worst possible thing that you can have in your body. I mean, it not only leads to diabetes, but it leads to heart disease. It leads to high blood pressure. I mean, the list of things that is caused by sugar is insurmountable. I mean, you are far better to have good fats or even bad fats as you are to have sugar. And I promise you, if it's low fat, it has got sugar in it. Absolutely.
I think it's also something I think is very interesting, and I think it's alarming in some ways. Even nutritional labels aren't always necessarily true. Oftentimes they can be skewing the numbers based on a lot of times they do it based on net carbs, especially people who are watching their carbs. Some companies will calculate the carbs and take that out, and then the calorie count, and we're not counting calories, but this is just an example. The calorie count isn't reflective of how much, and I believe it's, and you correct me if I'm wrong, I believe a gram of fat and a gram of carbohydrates, right? Are they 9 calories per gram? I forget the exact.
No, fat is not 9 calories, and okay. Carbs and proteins are roughly 4 to 5.
Right. So if you really do the math yourself, oftentimes you'll find that the label's incorrect if you go and do those calculations. So I've run across that numerous times, and in some of the macros groups I'm on in Facebook, they speak to that all the time, how your macros count isn't necessarily reflective or accurate based on what the label says.
Just like, again, read the ingredient section. When it comes to fat, if you read the partially hydrogenated oils or high fructose corn syrup, guaranteed it's got fat in there. So it doesn't matter if it says low fat or no fat. If it's got those two ingredients in it, it's fatty, and it's processed, and it's chemicals that are made in a lab, which are foreign to our body. So when we put these foreign substances in our body, it makes our organs work overtime. And that doesn't mean overtime that it's burning more calories. It means it working overtime just to do its job and stay alive.
Yeah, that's amazing. So, all right. So I want to talk about something else. I read a very interesting article this week, and I wanted to ask you about, and I don't know if you're familiar with it. I'm going to pull it up, about chrononutrition, which is really essentially timing the meals. They did a study, and I believe it was in Science Daily, and it said that they found that if you have I'm bringing it up, if you have protein for breakfast, that it constitutes an essential component, and it deals with the timing of diets, and the distribution of protein intake over the day affects your muscles depending upon your body's internal clock. And they said that they found with both mice and humans that if they ate breakfast, if they had protein intake at breakfast, it induced an increase in muscle growth.
Mm-hmm. It's also going to reduce the amount of food that you're going to eat the rest of the day. So if you have a breakfast, which is all carbs, which if you think about the American diet, we typically have breakfasts of all carbs, you're going to be more likely and more hungry throughout the rest of the day than you are if you add some protein and a little bit of fat. Fat is going to keep you fuller longer, sustain it longer. But what protein does is it burns actually more calories. Your body has to burn more calories, which I know we're not counting calories, but in the essence of what happens internal in your body has to burn more calories to break down protein than it does to break down carbs and fat. So again, the number one question you ask at every meal is, what is my protein source? Figure out your protein source, then you fill in the rest of your plate with your carbs and your fats.
So we've spoken about how much sugar that we should have in a day. You said 20 to 30 grams. We've spoken about the protein. What about the fats? Should we be monitoring that as well?
You know, fat gets to be tricky, especially when we got this keto fave diet, which I'm not saying doesn't get you good results, but we have to be careful about the types of fat that we're ingesting. So yes, you want your diet of fat to be roughly 20, no more than 30% of your diet, which is why I'm not a fan of the keto diet, because although it decreases your carbs, which I am a fan of because that is where you'll see a release of weight, it has an insurmountable amount of fat. And our bodies don't need it. So eventually it does the same thing as sugars does. It just goes onto our hips, into our stomachs. We don't need that much fat.
And what happens? Our bodies become accustomed to keto over time. And then how does that work?
Keto diet is, there's been so many research studies showing that it leads to actually an increase in heart disease. And then what happens is, because we're not used to having carbs, when people put the carbs back in, it's a total shock to their system. So they will gain the weight back almost instantaneously. So if it took you 6 months to lose, let's say 30 pounds, it might take you a month to gain all 30 pounds back.
I know, I've done it. So Jason has a question. He's saying, how bad is caffeine, and advice on how to cut down or cut it out completely?
There is so much conflicting information out there as far as caffeine. It is a drug, guys. I mean, it's a drug made in a lab. It's not a real natural. There's not anything out there. I say that, but somebody can probably conflict me. There is probably a substance out there that has a natural stimulant in it, but it's not going to be caffeine. So caffeine in small doses, not so bad. The problem is that most people's small doses is a 20-ounce bottle of soda or something like that. That's not a small dose. So let's say you have just a regular 8-ounce glass of black coffee being the key, not all the things that you add into it. Not so bad, but you also got to keep in mind that caffeine has a half-life. Okay, so it might take, you might feel the effects of it for 4 hours, but that means it's not gone. So it will probably take 8 hours to get out of your system. So something you have at 4 o'clock in the afternoon or 2 or 3 in the afternoon, which is when typically people go hitting for the caffeine or for that sugar rush, is going to affect you when you go to bed at night. Now, that being said, caffeine, just like any other drug, is not something I would recommend you come off cold turkey. You are going to get the side effects, which is typically fatigue and headaches. Headaches is your most common one. Very similar to coming off of sugar. It's a drug. So you are going to get side effects. But just like any other thing that you put in your body that's not good, there's going to be some kind of side effects when you are eliminating it. So the slower you can taper it, or the better your body will be able to handle it.
I agree. So, I'm not someone who drinks a lot of caffeine. I've never tried coffee. Occasionally I'll have tea, but very, very rarely. But there are times in the morning when I will put a little bit of, and I think I spoke about this last week, the water drops with the caffeine, and it really does wreak havoc on my stomach oftentimes because I'm not used to it, and it really makes.
So do you get nauseous, or?
I do. I get nauseous, or there are even times when I get heartburn from it, depending. I mean, I don't often get heartburn, but very occasionally that will do that to me. So I think that for anything that has an impact on your body like that, there has to be, it always makes me believe that, because sugar does that to me as well sometimes, that I believe that there has to be some negative consequences. And caffeine's one of those things that throughout the years, it's been great. It's been horrible. It's good for you now. It's like hamburger.
Coffee and wine. As for every study out there that's bad for you, there's another study out there that's going to give you the benefits of it. So It's whatever they're trying to market to you at the time. It's all marketing, guys. Our food, everything that we eat, it's marketing. That you've just got to realize, you got to figure out who's trying to sell it to you.
So Jason has another question. It says, can you, Chris, put that one up. Can you speak to how is it that you have to drink twice as much water as toxins to flush your system? I'm not sure what toxins we're referring to, but.
I don't know the specifics on that, Jason, but my guess would be that because your body already requires so much water just to function and do its normal duties, it's going to take an excess amount of that to be able to flush the rest of the excess toxins that you're putting in your body. But I don't want to really quote on that because I don't know the research, but I will look into that for you. Absolutely.
And then how would we be able to gauge the toxins when we're saying drink twice as much water as the toxins? How do we know what the toxins are?
And you wouldn't be able to, because guys, even if you're eating fruits and vegetables, if those are not organic and they don't come from sustainable agriculture, then you're getting toxins. Even though you're eating, what you feel is fresh fruits and vegetables, you're getting pesticides and, so toxins are all around us. You're never going to be able to avoid them. You're going to have those everywhere. I don't know that you could actually gauge that. I mean, unless you have just a 100% healthy, clean diet that's coming from your own backyard, I don't know that you would be able to gauge that.
So
but I would say that that's probably a very good, although I don't know the scientific research, I would say probably if you knew you were eating 100 grams of toxins, 20 grams or 20 ounces, 200 ounces of water to flush out that 100 is probably a pretty safe bet. It's not scientific, but I would say it's pretty a safe bet.
So he's giving us an example as twice as much water as a carbonated drink, which I assume by carbonated drinks, he's referring to soda or soft drinks.
I don't know if that is scientific. I don't know if, I don't like to speak to things that I haven't actually read the literature about it because I don't want to put false information out there. But I do know that they say.
I'm going to call Jason out because I really think he's probably referring to beer.
Well, that's what I was going to say. So if you're drinking an alcoholic beverage, they do say you want to have a glass of water per alcoholic beverage. The reason for that is because what alcohol does is it dehydrates you. And the reason why you have a hangover the next day is not because necessarily the toxins, it's because it has dehydrated you. And so it's like your cells have shriveled up and they can't do what they're supposed to do. So that's why you feel the effects of it. Yes, it's toxins that are causing that, but the primary reason you have a hangover is because you're dehydrated.
I agree. And then Adam's saying hello. Adam he's sitting here. He's watching as he's sitting here watching a whole bag of Sun Chips and talking about calories. But we don't talk about calories, Adam. That's out of our. Out of where. So then Jason's saying again, we hear horror stories that drinking too much water can give you water poisoning. How true is this? And I've read that. I think it's a rarity, and you have to drink a lot of water. It's we're talking people have died from water intoxication, but it's very rare, and it's almost when they're challenged to drink 5 gallons of water. I mean, that's my experience. You may know more so than I do.
No, it is a rarity. It happens. I'm not denying that. It happens, but it is very rare. Now, I will tell you, there's my mom's best friend who's got probably every illness known to man because of her lifestyle of eating very unhealthy. She's actually restricted to 60 ounces of water a day, which to me is crazy. That's just not enough water in my opinion. But the reason for that is because she's got so many illnesses such as neuropathy and diabetes and kidney disease. Her body will retain water. So she's already on a water pill and then her body will retain water. So she does have to be very strict. But as far as like over drinking water, it's pretty difficult to do. And even then, it's not something that you're going to, if you spread your water out through a 24-hour period a day, it's not going to happen. Those typically when you're over intoxicating on water, it's because it's done, like you said, on a challenge, something that it's all in one and your body just doesn't have time to digest that necessarily.
So Jason's calling me out. He's saying, damn it. Thanks for the beer comment because
you kind of gave yourself away on that one.
Sorry, Jay. What is saying and Justin saying for women, people say women can only do a few exercise because they're weak. That's not true. I don't know who says that anymore. I don't think that that's true, particularly now when we have the Olympics on. Women are certainly athletic, and that's an antiquated belief. And I'm surprised that Justin, who's only 18, would even hear that. But I don't find that
to go toe to toe with men. It is without proper training, men naturally do have a little bit more muscle strength. It's just the way that they are designed. So without training, then men are stronger. But no, women can go toe to toe with men. Like I said, I was able to out squat many men back, giving myself away many years ago. Let's say maybe I need to get back to that point.
So Jay is saying, should you always drink water with meals? It seems to keep you fuller. Is this true? I think that drinking water before a meal is beneficial. I'm not sure what your thoughts are on that.
So always drink a glass of water before you eat. And that's because oftentimes we think we're hungry, but what we actually are is we're just thirsty. And if you're feeling thirsty, then you're already dehydrated, because when you're thirsty, that's your body's way of signaling you that you're dehydrated. Now, when you're drinking water throughout your meal, there's a lot of research out there that says that you don't want to over drink water, because basically you're breaking down the enzymes, or you're not allowing the food and the enzymes to break down. So you don't want to drink 20, 30 ounces of water with your meal. But as far as drinking that as opposed to anything else, then yes, you definitely want to drink water. But I would recommend a glass of water before you eat every meal, just so that you know you're eating because you're hungry and not because you're thirsty.
In addition, and I've tried this, and this is something you spoke about, I don't know if it was last week or the week before, about when you wake up to drink 16 ounces of water a day. And I find that that's beneficial as well. I find that water in general just makes you feel so much lighter. Even if you have a day when you're overindulging, if you drink that water, most times you don't see any deficits, any gains on the scale. I find that even if I go to a party, if I just keep plugging away at that water and get that gallon in, I usually am able to maintain my weight and feel much less bloated than I would otherwise.
Absolutely. Yes.
So Randy's not on tonight. I want to give Jay has another question, and this is something I'm curious about too. And I often do this, and I know Jay's a snacker, but is it healthier to eat 5 or 6 small portion meals a day versus 3 big ones?
Hands down, 5 to 6. Hands down. Your body can only digest so many grams of protein, so many carbs in a meal. So if you're trying to cram all of that into 3 meals, then the excess that it can't digest at the time is just going to get stored as fat. You're not going to get the benefits of it. Not only that, but every time you eat, you're speeding up your metabolism, because your metabolism has to speed up in order to digest that food. So eating, although not the same as exercising, similar to what our bodies do, calorie burn inside our bodies, it has to speed up to digest it. So absolutely 5 or 6 meals a day, not huge meals, but yes, 5 or 6 as opposed to 3 big meals.
So let me expand on Jay's question. So let's say we have a man who has a 200-pound weight goal, and your guidance is to eat 100 grams of protein a day. So should that be equally distributed? If we're having 5 meals a day, should that person have 20 grams of protein every meal?
Correct.
Okay.
I personally recommend every person to have about 15 to 20 grams of protein per meal. Just, it's a girl or guy, doesn't matter. 15 to 20 grams per meal. It's also going to cut down on the carbohydrates that you're eating and the fat that you feel like you need to eat at that time. And again, when we're eating protein, our body has to burn more calories to digest that protein than it does fat or carbs. So evenly spread. I'm not a fan of meals and snacks. I just prefer to have straight 5 meals, small meals, obviously, but just straight 5 meals. I'm not a fan of snacks because I feel like, I don't know. Maybe I just like to eat more. I don't know.
Well, I was given a great piece of advice, and I try to follow this, this is from a nutritionist, that even if you are craving something and you wanted to have a snack, don't do mindless snacking, to incorporate that into your meal. So if you're having a steak and you really feel as if you want pretzels, eat that at the same meal. And it really also makes you cognizant and mindful of when you're eating and what you're eating. If you feel the need for that, just move it into a meal, and it will eliminate your snacking I don't know if it will eliminate it, but it will decrease your need to snack because you're incorporating those foods right into your meal plan.
Well, and it really, it's kind of like a change in mindset. When people think of snack almost has like a devious tone to it because it's like a cheat. You know what I'm saying? Because it's not part of our meal. We can eat whatever. So I firmly agree with what she said. Definitely incorporate it into the meal. Absolutely.
And Courtney's saying she struggles with drinking water. And again, we've spoken about this. It's an acquired taste and you have to build up to it. And if you're going to really, and I also, and my advice is to build up to that, because if you're going from 20 ounces to a gallon, you're going to be spending a lot of time in the ladies' room that day.
Well, and that's probably going to last, just to let you know, Courtney, that's not something that goes away in 2 or 3 days. It actually might take 2 or 3 weeks before you stop being a frequent visitor of the bathroom, because your body just needs to become accustomed to it. Our body will adapt, but if you stop doing that, then it's like you're starting all over again. So give it 2 or 3 weeks, but then I would recommend adding I'm very careful about what I did get some of your drops the other day. I texted you and I did get some of those. They're pretty tasty, not gonna lie, but they also have a whole lot of ingredients that are not very good for you. So if you're needing the caffeine as opposed to a soda, hands down, that's what you go for. But I recently needed just a water switch. You know, water, it gets plain, it gets old sometimes. So I cut up cucumbers and put it in my water purifier and let it sit overnight. And it kind of gave it just like a different taste. And then cucumbers are very water filled vegetable as well. I tried fruit, but I'm not a fan of it. It kind of tasted just like watered down, but I've got several clients that will cut up watermelons or strawberries or berries and just put them at the bottom of their water bottle. And it kind of just gives it that little bit of taste. It's just, you want something that changed the plain taste is what you're trying to get away from.
I agree. And you know, we're getting down to the top of the hour. Randy's not on tonight, but I wanted to give people an update if anybody's following his story. He went a camping, and this is why I know that the Barber brothers are on, and I want to get to Jay's question too. But the Barber brothers are on, and they took Randy camping for the weekend, so I don't think he was on track very much this weekend. And he's actually starting today and regrouping. He picked up some water. He picked up some water drops, and he's working on changing his mindset and the breathing. So I think we have the first two steps down, and then we're going to work on Randy with the food consumption.
I wanted to mention, I had mentioned several weeks ago about Crystal Light, which that's something that I used when I first started trying to acquire the taste of water. But when I was at the grocery store on Sunday, I just happened to check out the ingredients, and it actually has aspartame in it. So
really,
did not know that at all, but it does have aspartame. So eliminate that. I didn't say it.
So Jay saying, are the zero sugar sports drinks actually good for you? And I believe he has a zero sugar Gatorade, but you know, I think that's a similar answer, right? Some of them you have to look at the ingredients, and some of them, I don't know if Gatorade has aspartame. I
don't think it has aspartame, but it does have another. So just because it doesn't have sugar, it's going to have a sugar substitute in it. And sometimes the sugar substitutes can be just as deadly or just as toxic as your plain old sugar. Now, if we're just speaking in terms of what is going to affect your waistline and not necessarily what's going to affect your organs, absolutely, then your sugar substitutes are going to be better for you if you're just talking about your waistline and not your overall health.
And I think too, if you're delving into a healthier lifestyle, if you can whittle off and wean off of these things as time goes on, in the short term, they may be more beneficial if you are trying to lose weight, then move forward. And that was similar in my own trajectory in my own life. You know, I drank a lot of diet Pepsi initially, but now I never have that. You know, I've acclimated myself to water, and I do have the drops on occasion, but most of the time now I have plain water. So I think it takes time, and it's a progression and a transition.
I wanted to mention to Courtney, so when I competed in my very first bodybuilding show, this just shows you that you can get the physique that you want and not necessarily be healthy. So I not only drank Crystal Light with every water beverage, it had Crystal Light pink lemonade in it, but I used buttloads of Splenda in everything because I couldn't have sugar and I couldn't have anything sweet. So I used Splenda and everything. Now I had that physique, but was I actually healthy inside? Not so much, and didn't actually feel great. So it's what are your goals, guys? Is it just to look great in the mirror, or is it, do you want to physically feel good and vibrant and energized without having to pop a pill or drinking something?
And Jay's asking, is there a difference between diet and zero sugar soda? And I don't believe so. It's just
Pretty much the same.
it's just a different marketing ploy. I believe zero diet there's zero natural sugar in diet sodas, but there's always an artificial sweetener.
And guys, sugar comes in about 50, literally 50 different names to it. So it might not say sugar or aspartame or sucralose, but it's probably in there. I promise.
All right. So what's our plan for next week? We're going into
Next week is detox and declutter. Cleanse, detox, and declutter.
All right, that sounds great. And I announced this yesterday, but for each show and for our show, I'm going to make a Facebook group that is solely dedicated to the show, and I'm going to work on that over the next couple of days, and then I'll send everybody on this an invite, and everybody on Coast to Coast. It's just we'll house our episodes on there, and it'll be more streamlined, just to get your tips and tricks in a streamlined, more essentially focused place. And that's our next plan. That's my plan for the week. We didn't talk much about self-love. That's our other.
Yeah, we need to focus a little bit more on that each week, I do believe, because that's a powerful topic.
I agree. And I think we'll have to put a timer on, and maybe we'll have an agenda. We'll make an agenda. And if anybody has any suggestions on the course of, and we talked about in the beginning, we could dedicate 15 minutes to a recap, 15 minutes on our new topic, 15 minutes on questions, and 15 minutes on self-love. And that's just our self-acceptance. That's just a ballpark and just an idea, but you're the star of the show, so I'm going to follow your lead, and we'll discuss.
Any more suggestions from our audience, everybody and appreciate Justin and everybody that comes back. Any suggestions, we'll be happy to accommodate. This is a new show, so we're kind of learning as we go. So if there's anything that you want us to talk about or touch on, please feel free to comment or send us a DM, message us.
Absolutely. And we're going to have all of our how you can contact us on that Facebook group.
I wanted to mention, so I just finished the ebook, which is about the 7 steps to biohack your health. So what we're talking about each week, we're breaking down one of the steps. So it's not on Facebook, but if you go to my Instagram, which is, can I put comments in here?
I don't think you can, but we can after the show into the Facebook under the show, and we can put it in our group right at the top. So we're going to work on that.
So if you go to my Instagram, it's in the link. It's in my Sociotap link, and you can download the book for free.
Great. So we'll put that on our page. And we have 2 new listeners this week. Bobby Benedict. I want to give Bobby a shout out. She's always a big supporter of mine, and I appreciate it. And Amy Wood. I have a feeling that Amy and Justin are pretty close. She's commenting more on Justin's comments than about the show, but they seem to have a little bit of a rivalry. So welcome to the show, Amy and Bobby. It's always great to see you. I love to see you, and I love when you participate. You always bring value and benefit to the show too. So speaking of value and benefit, I want to thank Amber for co-hosting and all of her guidance and participation and how valuable she is to us. And of course I have to close it out and thank the man behind the scenes who we couldn't do anything without. So Chris, thanks for another great night and another great show. Thanks everybody for your participation. That's really what makes the core of the show.
Absolutely.
And we can't do it without you. Thank you, Courtney. Thanks everybody. And you can play us out, Chris, and we'll catch you next week.